Hello, esteemed gentlemen. Even silence has a breaking point, and when it snaps, it doesn't make noise, it makes history. They say still waters run deep, but what they don't tell you is that those depths can drown everything in sight once disturbed. Studies in behavioral psychology reveal that people who suppress emotions too long often erupt not in chaos, but in cold precision. And no one embodies that eerie phenomenon better than the Sigma male. He's the quiet observer, the strategist behind every storm, the man who looks unbothered while quietly plotting his emotional survival. But when that calm mask fractures, when years of restraint, betrayal, and quiet endurance finally reach their threshold, something terrifyingly fascinating happens. He doesn't explode like an alpha. He implodes, methodically. His wrath doesn't roar, it calculates. It's the kind of snap that doesn't just change his world, it rewires his very nature. He stops playing human the way society expects him to. And the dark humor in all of this? The same people who once praised his calm composure will be the first to panic when that composure turns into cold detachment. This is not about rage, it's about revelation. This is what really happens when a Sigma male snaps, the dark reality behind the mask. Number 1, he realizes he was never peaceful. He was just suppressing chaos. People often mistake a Sigma male's calmness for inner peace, but that's far from the truth. His calm has always been control, not serenity. Beneath that steady tone, quiet gaze, and unshaken presence lies chaos he's been mastering for years. He's the kind of man who doesn't break things when he's angry. He just suppresses it so deeply that even he forgets what's brewing inside. But the truth is, he was never peaceful. He was only disciplined enough to cage the storm. When that discipline finally gives way, the transformation is unnerving. He doesn't lash out randomly. He simply stops pretending to be the composed man everyone relied on. His tone changes, his tolerance evaporates, and the warmth that once made him approachable fades into something colder, sharper. The world sees it as a sudden change, but it's not sudden at all. It's the unveiling of the real him, the version that's been holding back out of respect, patience, and restraint. This is the point where his nice guy silence turns into emotional independence. He stops explaining himself, stops saving people from the consequences of their own actions, and stops giving energy to relationships that drain him. The chaos he used to suppress doesn't make him reckless, it makes him brutally honest. He starts calling things what they truly are, no sugarcoating, no diplomacy. People around him start whispering that he's changed, but he hasn't. He's just stopped apologizing for being strong. The mask falls off, and what's left is raw truth, the kind of truth that makes people uncomfortable because it's not filtered by fear or the need to be liked. When a Sigma male snaps, he doesn't become darker, he becomes real. The peace they thought he had was never calmness, it was self-restraint. And once that restraint is gone, the world finally meets the man behind the mask. Unfiltered, unapologetic, and utterly unstoppable. Number 2, he becomes his own universe. Self-contained, self-sustained, and untamed. When a Sigma male finally snaps and rebuilds himself, he doesn't return to the world, he builds his own. The man who once tried to fit in no longer needs to. He stops seeking validation, understanding, or belonging because he's realized something most people never do. Peace doesn't come from the world. It comes from self-sovereignty. He becomes his own universe, self-contained, self-sustained, and untamed. Every decision, every silence, every move now revolves around his own gravitational pull. This transformation isn't about arrogance or isolation, it's evolution. He's seen what dependence on others costs: drained energy, misplaced loyalty, and slow emotional decay. When he finally breaks free from all that noise, He builds a reality that answers only to him. His thoughts become clearer, his emotions sharper, and his intuition frighteningly precise. The approval that once mattered now feels childish. He no longer performs. He exists with purpose, without permission. This new version of him is almost mythical to those who knew his past self. He's not angry anymore. He's awakened. He stops chasing people, explanations, or closure. His silence speaks louder than confrontation ever could. The world feels his absence and misreads it as arrogance, but it's actually self-mastery. He's learned how to live without needing to be seen. That kind of freedom scares people, because it's the rarest kind, the kind that can't be controlled. Every time life tries to pull him back into chaos, he remains unshaken. Not because he's indifferent, but because he's already built his peace from the inside out. That's what makes him powerful. He's no longer part of the crowd. He's his own dimension. And once a Sigma male reaches that state, there's no returning to the world that once tried to cage him, because you can't control a man who has become his own world. Number 3, he doesn't want revenge. He wants revelation. When a Sigma male snaps, revenge is the last thing on his mind. He's not interested in payback because he knows vengeance is just another way of staying tied to what broke you. What he wants is exposure, not for himself, but for the truth. His fury isn't emotional chaos. It's enlightenment wrapped in fire. When he finally loses patience with deceit, hypocrisy, or manipulation, he doesn't shout, he unveils. His wrath works like light. It doesn't destroy, it reveals what's been hiding in the dark all along. The people who pushed him, underestimated him, or tried to control him expect retaliation. Instead, he gives them something far worse: brutal honesty. He pulls the masks off, forces people to face their own shadows, and shows them the ugliness they swore they didn't have. His anger is uncomfortable because it exposes. It doesn't seek to harm, it seeks to awaken. He becomes the mirror that reflects what everyone has been pretending not to see. This is why his snapping point feels spiritual rather than emotional. It's not a tantrum, it's a revelation, a breakdown that births clarity. He stops protecting lies for the sake of peace. He stops tolerating manipulation dressed as care. And in doing so, he makes everyone around him question their own truth. His fury isn't hot and loud. It's calm, exact, and impossible to run from. He doesn't want revenge because that would mean descending to their level. He wants understanding, not for himself, but for reality itself. When he's done, nothing looks the same. Masks fall, pretenses shatter, and those who thought they broke him finally see the real damage. They expose themselves. His rage doesn't burn to punish, it burns to purify. That's the Sigma's revelation. He doesn't destroy people. He destroys illusions. Number 4, he becomes obsessed with truth, even if it hurts. When a Sigma male reaches his breaking point, comfort becomes meaningless to him. He's done pretending things are fine, done with polite lies and social masks that make everyone feel safe, but keep everything fake. Something inside him snaps, and from that moment on, he wants only one thing: truth. Not the version people dress up to sound good, but the raw, uncomfortable kind that most people spend their lives avoiding. He doesn't care if it hurts, embarrasses, or isolates him. What matters is that it's real. He starts examining everything: his beliefs, his habits, his relationships, even his own motives. He questions what he's been taught, what he's tolerated, and what he's become. This obsession with truth can make him seem cold or detached, but it's actually the opposite. It's intensity in its purest form, the hunger to see life without filters. He'd rather bleed from honesty than suffocate in illusion. This shift changes how he interacts with the world. He no longer entertains small talk or fake smiles. If he senses dishonesty, he cuts ties instantly. If he feels manipulation, he exposes it without hesitation. He doesn't want peace if it means pretending. He doesn't want love if it's based on half-truths. His standards rise so high that only authenticity can reach him. And yes, the truth hurts him too. He's not immune to it, but instead of running, he lets it reshape him. Every hard truth burns away a weakness, a delusion, or an outdated version of himself. The process is painful but purifying. When he's done, he's not softer, he's sharper. His obsession with truth turns into power, because he's no longer afraid of what most people can't face. And that's when the Sigma male becomes truly dangerous. Not because he's angry, but because he finally sees everything as it really is. Number 5. He becomes emotionally sterile but psychologically sharp. When a Sigma male snaps, something inside him shifts permanently. The emotional turbulence that once made him human begins to fade, replaced by a chilling clarity. He doesn't feel things the same way anymore. Not because he's broken, but because his mind has learned to protect itself. The emotions that once weighed him down, guilt, disappointment, even compassion, flatten into quiet neutrality. What takes their place is an almost surgical awareness, a level of perception that's unnervingly sharp. It's as if his mind trades emotion for precision. He starts noticing everything, the subtle tone changes in people's voices, the hidden intentions behind their kindness, the selfish motives wrapped in concern. He reads people like code. He doesn't get angry anymore because he already sees the outcome before it unfolds. This detachment makes him seem cold, but it's not cruelty, it's defense. You can't manipulate someone who no longer reacts emotionally. This heightened perception isolates him, though. Once he starts seeing through everything, the fake smiles, the half-truths, the power games, it becomes difficult to connect with anyone. He doesn't hate people, he just finds it hard to take them seriously. Conversations that once engaged him now feel like theater. Relationships feel like unspoken negotiations. Everything becomes transparent, and that transparency is both a blessing and a curse. He's not emotionless, he's emotionally efficient. He saves his energy for what truly matters, and that makes him unstoppable in any environment that runs on illusion. People can't deceive him anymore because his detachment gives him an advantage. He sees reality without the fog of feeling. But that same gift costs him warmth. He becomes a quiet observer of life rather than a participant. And that's the paradox of his evolution. The more he understands, the lonelier the understanding becomes. Number 6. His empathy mutates into indifference. There was a time when the Sigma male cared too much. He absorbed people's pain like it was his duty to fix it. He listened, forgave, and carried emotional weight that didn't belong to him. But constant disappointment has a way of poisoning compassion. After too many betrayals, too many one-sided efforts, his empathy begins to rot, not because he stops feeling, but because he's felt too much for too long. What remains isn't anger or hate. It's something colder, indifference. When that shift happens, his detachment is terrifying to those who once relied on his warmth. The man who once went out of his way to understand everyone suddenly stops trying. He no longer asks if you're okay. He no longer gives second chances. He simply disconnects. People mistake it for arrogance, but it's really exhaustion, the kind that comes from years of emotional overextension. He's not bitter. He's emptied. This emotional frostbite makes him dangerous in a quiet way. He stops being emotionally accessible, which means no one can guilt, manipulate, or sway him anymore. He observes others' drama like someone watching a movie he's already seen, predictable and uninteresting. That numbness becomes his armor. Nothing shocks him, nothing moves him, and nothing can be used against him. Ironically, his indifference gives him power. The world runs on emotional control, fear, guilt, need. But when those levers stop working on him, he becomes unpredictable and untouchable. People who once drained him now feel small in his silence. He doesn't retaliate or explain. He simply withdraws into emotional zero, and from that space, he's free. The Sigma male's empathy didn't die. It evolved into something beyond reach. It no longer bends toward people who don't deserve it, and that scares them more than his anger ever could. Number 7. He detaches from morality completely. When a Sigma male reaches his limit, morality stops holding meaning for him. He's seen how people use moral codes as weapons, preaching righteousness while practicing deceit. After years of watching hypocrisy dressed as virtue, he starts to see morality for what it often is, control disguised as conscience. When he finally snaps, he doesn't rebel out of evil. He simply stops subscribing to systems that never played fair. Right and wrong blur into something practical. What aligns with his principles stays. What doesn't gets discarded. This detachment doesn't make him reckless. It makes him frighteningly deliberate. He no longer acts out of guilt or approval, and that freedom gives him unnerving clarity. He doesn't justify. He doesn't excuse. He decides. The rules that used to govern him lose their grip because he's realized they were never designed to protect integrity, only to keep people obedient. Once that illusion falls apart, he stops asking what's moral and starts asking what's true. In this state, he becomes unpredictable to those who think in black and white. He's not cruel, but he's capable of doing what others can't, cutting ties, ending cycles, walking away without remorse. His actions may look ruthless, but to him, they're necessary. He's beyond the reach of guilt, because guilt is a currency that no longer buys his loyalty. The strange thing is, the more ethically untethered he becomes, the sharper his inner compass grows. Without society's labels clouding his judgment, he acts from raw instinct and authentic intent. He doesn't aim to be good or bad, he aims to be real. That's what unsettles people most. His decisions come from pure clarity, not emotion, not morality, just truth. When a Sigma male detaches from morality, he doesn't lose his soul. He just reclaims it from the hands of those who tried to own it. Number 8. His intelligence becomes a weapon, not a gift. When a Sigma male snaps, his intelligence stops serving harmony and starts serving truth, even if that truth destroys illusions. The mind that once sought to understand, connect, and stabilize now operates with unnerving precision. He stops using his intellect to comfort others and begins using it to dissect them. Every lie, every contradiction, every mask. He notices it instantly. His logic becomes razor-sharp, and that sharpness cuts through pretenses like glass. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't argue, he simply exposes. With just a few calm sentences, he can unravel someone's entire self-image. His words don't need volume, they carry surgical accuracy. The same insight that once helped people heal now becomes the scalpel that removes their delusions. It's not cruelty, it's revelation through destruction. He's not trying to hurt, he's trying to make reality undeniable. But the effect is often devastating, because most people can't stand naked truth. What makes him truly formidable is that his intelligence no longer plays by emotional rules. He stops trying to persuade. He simply sees. And once he sees through someone, they lose all power over him. Manipulation becomes impossible, because he reads intent faster than words. His calmness feels threatening because it's not passivity, it's calculation. People sense it, even if they can't explain why they suddenly feel exposed around him. This transformation isn't about turning evil, it's about evolution through disillusionment. His mind becomes a fortress, quiet, controlled, lethal in silence. He doesn't destroy people for fun. He dismantles facades to protect himself from ever being fooled again. His intelligence, once a bridge to others, becomes a weapon that guards his solitude. And when a Sigma male reaches that level of awareness, you can't outthink him, outplay him, or deceive him, because he's already seen through the entire game. Number 9. He stops trying to be understood. When a Sigma male finally stops trying to be understood, it's not out of pride, it's out of exhaustion. For years he's explained his silence, his distance, his thinking, hoping someone might actually see him. But people rarely do. They misunderstand his calm as arrogance, his independence as coldness, his depth as complexity. He learns painfully that most don't listen to understand. They listen to respond or judge. And that realization breaks something deep inside him. When that final snap happens, he withdraws completely, not in anger, but in acceptance. He stops clarifying his intentions, stops justifying his choices, stops softening his edges for others' comfort. He no longer seeks to be seen, because he's discovered peace in being invisible. There's a strange power in that. The less he explains himself, the freer he becomes. People can misunderstand him all they want. He's past the point of caring. This shift changes everything about how he moves through the world. He speaks less, but every word he does say carries the weight of authenticity. His presence becomes unreadable, and that unreadability makes him untouchable. You can't manipulate someone who no longer craves understanding. You can't guilt a man who's accepted being misunderstood. Ironically, that detachment makes him more mysterious and more feared. The world can't categorize what it can't define, and the Sigma male in this state becomes unrecognizable even to those who thought they knew him best. He's not trying to fit any role or expectation anymore. He simply is. That's the quiet rebirth after his breaking point, when he stops performing for the comfort of others and finally lives by the truth of his own design. Understanding him was the world's privilege. Losing that access is his liberation. Number 10. He burns his old identity without regret. When a Sigma male burns his old identity, he doesn't do it out of despair. He does it out of clarity. He finally sees that the person he built was never entirely him. It was a collection of versions shaped by expectations, pain, and the quiet need to be accepted by a world that never really understood him. Every act of kindness that went unappreciated, every time he bit his tongue to keep the peace, every moment he downplayed his strength to fit in, all of it becomes fuel for the fire. And when that fire starts, he doesn't resist. He lets it consume everything that no longer feels real. This process isn't dramatic, it's surgical. He starts cutting away every piece of himself that was built on compromise. The nice guy who tolerated too much? Gone. The healer who tried to fix broken people? Gone. The understanding one who accepted less than he deserved? Gone. What's left after the burn isn't destruction, it's purification. He doesn't mourn his old self. He disowns it with calm precision. What emerges afterward is something the world often mistakes for darkness. He's quieter now, more selective, less reactive. But that isn't coldness, it's purity. He no longer moves from emotion or ego, he moves from awareness. The illusions of status, validation, or belonging lose their grip because he's detached from the hypnosis of social approval. He doesn't want to fit in anymore. He wants to stay real. This transformation is irreversible. Once a Sigma reaches that point, there's no going back to the man who used to explain himself to be understood or soften his truth to be liked. He's not rebelling. He's reborn. The fire didn't destroy him. It refined him. What stands in the ashes isn't a new version of him. It's the true one that was waiting to be free all along. Number 11. The mask of control. cracks into cold precision. When a Sigma male finally snaps, his calm doesn't disappear, it transforms. What people once saw as peaceful composure turns into something unnervingly precise. His emotions shut off like a switch, and his mind takes full control. It's not rage, not chaos, it's calculation. The empathy that once guided his choices dies quietly, leaving behind a detached clarity that feels colder than anger ever could. He no longer sees people as companions or enemies. He sees them as patterns, motives, and probabilities. Every smile, every gesture, every word around him becomes data. He decodes intentions faster than most can express them. His decisions stop being emotional reactions and become deliberate, surgical moves. People who once relied on his understanding now find him unreachable because he's stopped operating from feeling altogether. To him, emotion is now noise, distracting, unreliable, and dangerous. He trusts logic, not sympathy. This is where his power turns frightening. When he used to care, he held back to protect others' feelings. Now that restraint is gone. He doesn't aim to hurt, but he doesn't cushion truth anymore either. He delivers it raw, with clinical precision. His tone stays calm, his expression unreadable, but his words pierce through illusion like ice through glass. It's not cruelty. It's detachment weaponized. Those around him often sense it before they understand it. The warmth in his presence fades, replaced by a chilling stillness that demands distance. He becomes almost machine-like, not emotionless, but emotionally immune. His control is no longer about balance, it's about efficiency, and that's what makes him truly dangerous. Not because he's lost himself, but because he's shed the part of himself that could be controlled by empathy. Once his mask of control cracks, what emerges isn't chaos. It's cold precision, and it's unstoppable. Number 12. He withdraws so deeply he becomes unreachable. When a Sigma male finally reaches his limit, he doesn't explode, he disappears. His breaking point doesn't trigger an outburst, it triggers an erasure. He withdraws so completely that it's as if he's no longer part of the world that once drained him. It's not a temporary retreat or emotional sulk. It's a full disconnection, a quiet vanishing. And unlike others who isolate to heal, he withdraws as an act of rebellion. It's his way of saying, I'm done being human on your terms. At that stage, he no longer needs attention, validation, or understanding. Every bond that once anchored him now feels like a weight, and he cuts them all loose without hesitation. Calls go unanswered. Messages mean nothing. The emotional pull of the world loses its grip. He doesn't isolate because he's hurt. He isolates because he's free. The noise, the drama, the endless emotional exchanges that once demanded his energy now sound meaningless. People who knew him feel haunted by his absence. His silence isn't passive, it's deliberate. It's the kind that makes you realize he's not ignoring you, he's transcended you. The more the world tries to reach him, the less it finds to hold on to. He's gone somewhere deeper, into his own mind, his own rhythm, his own truth, and no one can follow him there. This withdrawal isn't depression, it's evolution. It's the Sigma reclaiming his energy from a world that kept taking without understanding. In that solitude, he rebuilds himself from nothing, stripped of pretense and demand. He doesn't care to return because he's found something far rarer than peace: detachment. Once a Sigma reaches that point, you can call his name, shout his worth, even beg for his presence, but all you'll hear in return is silence. A silence that says he's finally untouchable. In the end, when a Sigma male snaps, it's not a breakdown, it's a shedding. The world sees it as darkness, but it's actually a return to authenticity. He no longer bends for comfort, no longer plays for peace, and no longer carries the emotional debts of others. Every silence, every disappearance, every cold stare isn't vengeance, it's rebirth. The man who once held everything together has burned through illusion and come out on the other side, purified, precise, and permanently changed. This transformation confuses those who knew his old self. They'll say he's hardened, that he's distant, that he's not the same anymore. But that's the point. He isn't supposed to be. What they call coldness is just clarity. What they call detachment is strength. And what they call indifference is the freedom of a man who has stopped being owned by anything or anyone. The Sigma male's snapping point isn't the end of his calm, it's the evolution of it. It's where peace stops being politeness and becomes power. From that moment on, he stops being part of the system that shaped him and becomes something else entirely. An observer, a force, a truth in motion. The mask is gone, and what remains isn't a man trying to be understood, but one who understands everything. If you've ever felt that silent shift inside you, that moment when you stopped breaking for people who wouldn't bend for you, then you've touched that same fire. And maybe that's what this story really is. Not about rage, but about awakening. If you found meaning in this, don't just watch and move on. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments, your insight, your story, your truth. Because somewhere out there, another Sigma is standing on the edge of his own awakening. And your words might just be the spark that helps him step into his power.